as a manager. If your desire is to be effective, you should ask yourself one primary question. Do I value the contributions of the people I am in charge of leading? Because you see, an engaged workforce is a more invested community of like-minded people who have the same stake in the game as you do as a leader. And then you have a chance to row in the same boat to accomplish mutually beneficial goals. According to my friends at Business News Daily, managers should still be cognizant of the way in which they treat their workforce. The publication reports that 62% of employers believe they struggle to keep their employees engaged and productive at work. So what's the key to reversing the trend and creating a more authentic and meaningful relationship with the heartbeat of your organization? It's people. For some substantive answers, I turn to my friend Anne Donovan, who's been in the field of human resources and employee retention for more than 2 decades now. For the people she works with, she asked one fundamental question. Does employee turnover wreak havoc on your business operation? If so, you're in the right place today, because you see, Donovan helps employers and organizations alike develop employee retention strategies that reduce turnover and create great organizational culture. Donovan says her passion is her purpose, and employee retention and engagement is the name of the game. As the founder and principal owner of Donovan HR Solutions, she accomplishes this goal by developing new training programs which dramatically reduce employee turnover and increase the retention of your employees, while elevating your performance as a leader. Creating workforces and environments where employees want to stay, continue to thrive, and seek further advancement. I have to tell you that Donovan supplied some noteworthy nuggets of information, which I'm now excited to share with all of you. And by the way, if you work in human resources, this is a conversation you can't afford to miss. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you about employee retention and inclusive employment. Great to see you this afternoon, and happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you too.
Absolutely no. And just before I dive into your work in employee retention, you know, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and as I shared with you, I have cerebral palsy, and I work with organizations to help them amplify the hiring of folks with a disability. So I'm curious to start our conversation by asking Why do you think it's so important to highlight the capabilities of individuals with disabilities and infuse them into the workforce?
Since most of my work, or all of my work, has been on employee retention, that is a focus on. I look at all human resources practices when it comes to work, and I look from the beginning to the end. So from recruiting to offboarding. And with recruiting, we all know what the labor market's like right now. It is challenging. And I've been in human resources for 20 years. I've never seen a labor market like this. And by recruiting individuals with disabilities and expanding the recruiting sources, you not only increase the labor pool, but you also increase the diversity that you bring in. And we all have skills and abilities that we can lend to a job. And so highlighting individuals with disabilities and bringing them into the workforce can only help everyone be better.
Yeah, absolutely, and it provides workforces with a competitive advantage, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So it expands the people that you're introducing to. It creates a more open, inclusive, welcoming environment. And right now, or not just right now, but people want to have a sense of belonging when they're at work. And creating those inclusive environments, welcoming everybody in, no matter their background, their experience, who they are, with disabilities, with all different diversities, it can only help us be better.
Yeah, absolutely, and and I know that your work focuses on creating programs and training that dramatically improves employee retention and leadership. So tell me about your work and what makes it so fascinating, my friend.
It's, as I mentioned, I've been in human resources for a long time. One of my first HR jobs was an employment manager. And as employment manager, I was responsible for recruiting, interviewing, hiring, onboarding. You know what, Kevin? I was doing that every single week. We had high turnover. And so every week I was recruiting, interviewing, hiring, onboarding, and it was just over and over. And I like to see progress. I saw the high turnover as detrimental to the business and to the employees that were working there. And that's when I fell in love with employee retention. And there's so much that goes into retention. It's everything from how and where are you recruiting from? How are you training your managers? And how are you treating your employees? And so through my work with employee retention, I do a lot of feedback interviews and stay interviews. And I really want to hear from employees what makes them tick and what makes their work great and what could be improved upon it. And so through that, it was, we need more training and development. I want to know that I have a career path here. And you know what? My manager's not the best manager. So can you help work on them so that they can be better and we can have a more harmonious workplace? And so through that, I have started to develop leadership development courses and manager training to focus on those needs that were identified by the employees with their feedback. And that's what I love to do.
Absolutely, and and I want to talk about something that you just brought up in terms of your management, your managers as leaders. And, one of the biggest things that I talk to employers about is the importance of their leadership style and really connecting with their employees and people that they serve because you can dramatically reduce the amount of turnover if you have great and elite management. I'm sure you would agree with that. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how do you think we can cultivate better leaders and managers?
So I like that you asked that because it is cultivating. And when we have leaders and managers in place, a lot of times they're just a bad manager. We need to replace them, get somebody new in. But that just creates another never ending cycle because there's a lot of reasons why managers and leaders do what they do and how they work. And I'm a big fan of getting to the root of the problem because a lot of times it's not just the manager's mean and it's a personality difference. A lot of it is they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And so it's necessary to set clear expectations of their job and what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be leading their team. They don't know what to do or how to do it. And so giving them the coaching and mentoring to be better leaders. It can be that they're so strapped and they don't have the time or resources. And so it's giving them the tools and resources to do their job, but also looking at are they under so much pressure that they are losing it? And so what can we do to reduce their pressures? And so developing those elite managers is key to any workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and you talked about the work that you do in research and feedback and designing initiatives to address the underlying issues that go on in a workplace. And I know that when we talk about designing initiatives and getting feedback from people, it's also important to be authentic, isn't it? To make sure that those that you are leading know that you can also meet them at their own level, despite the fact that you may be in a leadership position. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And we do need to be authentic. I think that we all put up so many barriers because of fear, whether it's fear of rejection or it's fear of not knowing what to do. It could be lack of confidence. And it's in the workplace, it's allowing people to bring their whole selves to work. When I was coming up in my roles in management, I was always taught, will you leave your baggage at the door? And how realistic is that? Like, am I really able to leave my baggage at the door and come in and just be an automaton and work, 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 work? If I'm worried about something that's happening at home, am I able to just focus on that and work, 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 work? So bringing authenticity into the workplace is necessary. And we need to allow employees to be themselves. We need to allow ourselves to check in and have conversations. We, as managers and leaders, it's okay to be a human. Like we're people first and then we're employees. So ourselves to be people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm fascinated to ask you, with your research in employee feedback and sort of the behaviors of people at work, what has fascinated you the most as you study people at work, whether it be the way they approach problems or the way they innovate when it comes to solutions? So, what fascinates you the most when we talk about the study of people, and what have you seen most as sort of emerging trends through the work that you've done through employee feedback?
So with the employee feedback, I look for trends. I look at an entire data set and not just one person making one comment. But I do look for those trends in the feedback that I'm receiving. And over the course of just the past few years, the trend I'm seeing is that employees want flexibility. They want flexibility in their jobs and their roles. They want flexibility in the ability to work from home, work from the office. They want flexibility in their leaders and having their leaders trust them that hey, I know that you can do the job, so I'm going to let you work as you're able. And years ago, there was a lack of flexibility within the workplace and the employees making or saying that they wanted that flexibility. So that's what I've seen recently. And it's asking those employers to be more flexible. And do I need to let you know when I'm leaving early for every single doctor's appointment? Or do you just trust me to do my job and know that it'll get done and allow me to leave and go to my doctor's appointment? And then
Yeah.
it's, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say about, you know, changing or adapting your approach as a leader is so important, particularly after, COVID-19 and really meeting people where they are. So organizational flexibility is so important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And particularly with COVID, we had to change practically everything when it came to work overnight. So we were no longer going into the office. We needed to change the technology. We needed to change how people showed up. Oh, a person got COVID and can't and won't be able to work. So how do we take on those responsibilities? And it really showed organizations the need for that flexibility. And once organizations had to have that flexibility, they saw, oh, it's not so bad. We can work within this to offer more options to our employees so that they can go off and lead their lives and show up fully to work. So when you offer that flexibility and allow employees to focus on their stressors, they're showing up more to work, they're more productive at work, and it's a better environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk to you about organizational value and creating a great company culture because I know that you do a lot of work in identifying core workforce needs and sort of taking action to help them drive projects and results. So, how do you think we can create a great company culture? And how much is that aligned through the organizational or core values that you set as a company?
So, Kevin, with the creating that culture and aligning it throughout the organization, it starts with leadership. And the leaders are the ones that do determine what those core values are. But as I worked with one company that made it an entire organization initiative to and ask what are the core values. And so after months and months and months of work of taking in feedback from every single employee, they identified their core values. And because every single employee had buy-in into determining what those core values are, they were more aligned with it. And the core values should show up in every single thing that the company does. From a human resources perspective, it needs to show up in where you source, where you find your candidates. It needs to show up in the job posting. It needs to show up in the interviews. And then every single thing that the company does after that should be aligned with those core values. And if a company doesn't understand or they're trying to make a decision on an important initiative, they can go back to their core values and say, is this in alignment? If it is, yes, great. And if it's not, then we know that we probably don't want to do it. It's not who we are, and we can move on. So those core values come in every single piece of whatever the company does.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Anna, I'm curious to ask you about sort of realigning expectations in today's workforce. People stay with companies that they feel valued and respected with, and certainly listening to employees goes a long way as well. So I'm curious about how do we align expectations to maximize productivity in your view?
It's aligning expectations starts in the very beginning. And I always go back to recruiting. How are you recruiting your candidates? Where are you pulling them from? And you set expectations from the very beginning in the job posting. And you put your core values in there. You talk about the company culture. People now, when they're looking for a job, more so than ever before, they're looking to for companies that their values do align. They're looking for meaning in their work and what they're doing isn't important and has an impact. And they're looking for belonging within the company. And so the very first contact that a candidate has with a company is where that starts to be in alignment to make sure that it's a fit for both. When you're onboarding your team and the new hires, talk about the core values, introduce the senior leadership to the new hire and have them talk about the core values. Let them see them in place as you go about the tour and set up those expectations from the very beginning. And then when is onboarded and they're working and say they've been there for a while, they start to regress from those core values, then you need to have those conversations and pull them back in. Remember what the expectations were from the get-go, and communication and accountability comes in all throughout somebody's tenure, and holding people to that standard and not letting them slip just because they could be great at sales and but really not in alignment with values. So making sure that throughout their tenure they're held accountable for those.
Yeah, and let's dive just a little bit deeper into culture shifts and really setting the expectation as an organization or a company. We're not immune from stress at work, right? And it's important, as we said before, to be that authentic leader. But how do you think it's also equally as important to be nimble when it comes to shifting the culture of the organization or of an organization as circumstances change? And what's your best advice for managing stress in the workforce?
Wow, that's a great question, Kevin. And I think that we're all still trying to figure that out. But agility within an organization, I think that we all saw it a few years ago when overnight businesses shut down. We couldn't work. We had to change. And being nimble is crucial in all of that. It's with hierarchical organizations, it's top down and it can take a while for information to flow from the top to the line level. To have a nimble organization that can really pivot and recognize when things need to change starts with having a set plan in place. So I talked about succession planning earlier, and I'm a planner. I like things laid out and working on a succession plan so that you have it in place when things change, but realizing that no plan is in place. And so with the nimble organizations, even though you do have your plan, you need to realize that things are going to go awry from there too. But how do you react to those things that go awry? Are you okay with accepting mistakes? Are you okay with change? And cultures of change are filled with communication, trust, support, and respect. And so I think that those four pillars are key to change within an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Adam, I'm fascinated to ask you, how do you define equality at work and really creating that inclusive culture?
Defining the quality at work and creating an inclusive culture, it boils down to those four pillars. It's communication. And we all come from different backgrounds and experiences, and we all have something powerful to lend to a company. And we need to look at what that is for each individual. How does that individual work and play into the organization? It goes to the core values. What are the core values and what are those common goals that we're all working towards? And then how do we take our different backgrounds and experiences and align those with the core values? To create that inclusive culture, we are working towards that common goal. And we also need to realize that we all come in with our own biases, whether it's a similarity bias that I'm only going to hire people like me. It's the confirmation bias that I'm going to hire people that affirm what I believe, and realize that then you create a culture that's just like you. And those cultures are not that strong. They're filled with all the bad stuff. But if you have a more inclusive, diverse culture with different ideas and the openness to accept those ideas and talk about them, really makes a stronger company because all these different ideas are different than what I would have brought in. So hiring people of different backgrounds and experiences really does create a stronger culture, which creates a stronger company.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anne, when you look at the world today in terms of human resources and societal expectations and sort of checking the boxes rather than enjoying the journey as a manager. I'm curious about how you would advise managers to really celebrate the strength of their workforces and use that as sort of a, a vehicle of creativity in the workforce as well.
I like that, the vehicle of creativity. And with managers, a lot of it is education, it's communication. And we do need to celebrate each other's differences because then we can celebrate our successes. And with that communication and education and allowing for the vehicle of creativity is necessary with the world is today. I like that you mentioned check boxes and ticking them off. And it shouldn't be that way. It's I really with my human resources jobs, and I've really enjoyed my career because of the different connections that I get to make. And I'm a relationship builder. I like to get to know people as people and asking what some may deem as difficult questions. But that's how I'm going to learn. It's how I can open my own mind and broaden my own horizons, is just building those relationships, giving the
Yeah,
managers the opportunity to build those relationships too.
yeah, absolutely. So, and there's a sign in my office that says, life is a constant game of networking, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So, yeah, I'm curious, since I believe that relationships are also the lifeblood of success in business and building relationships and building a great community or organizational culture. What do you think is the key to developing great relationships with new people? And how do we sustain relationships with people that we've known for a while as well, in your view?
So I think that the key to building relationships is not going in with the mindset of, well, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this relationship? And so often when I was coming up in my career, I thought I was very ambitious and I that's how I approach relationships. And it was the absolute wrong way to do it. Instead of what's in it for me and how will this person benefit me, it's what can I learn from this person? By having conversations and asking questions and being interested in that person, it's I'm going to learn so much more from them just by doing that. And that will broaden my horizons. That's the key to networking. It's just building that connection and finding the interest in people rather than what can I get out of this. And then sustaining those relationships is keeping in touch. And people have different tools. They put it on their calendar that I need to reach out to this person. But it's having a genuine care for people and saying, oh, I wonder what my friend Bobby's up to. Pick up the phone and call or send a text. But continue that outreach. And it may be a little while since you've talked to that person, and that's okay. But let that person know that you're thinking about them just with a quick email if you want, or just, hey, I'm thinking about you. I know it's been a while, but what have you been up to?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I'm going to share just a quick story about myself. So I graduated college in 2010 with a journalism degree. And when I went to interview for jobs in a newsroom, news directors looked at me and they said, you have a lot of energy and enthusiasm for our business, but we view you as a liability because of your disability. We're afraid to put you out into the field of work. And one of the reasons that I got into working with organizations and talking about inclusivity at work is because out of college, it took me 6 years to get my first paying job as a reporter, and I worked. My first paying job actually was working with the government of Ontario to help them better infuse folks with disabilities into the workforce. So I'm curious to ask you about the importance of broadening perspective as leaders and what that means to you.
It's, I admire your stick to itiveness that you plugged away and got the job in journalism. So I applaud you for that. I think it's dreadful that people told you you were a liability because nobody's a liability. And that it is so important to talk to people. We can't jump to conclusions and make assumptions about somebody and we need to educate leaders on that. That just because I was I'm part of a women's organization and we were getting together and we were coming up with a slate of the board and the nominating people said, oh, well, she wouldn't want to do it because of X, Y, and Z. And we're not going to ask that person because they're too busy. But we were making those decisions for that person without her even being there. And so I thought, well, why don't we just pick up the phone and ask them if they're interested or if they want to or if they think they're too busy. And so often we make assumptions about a person and we project our thoughts and feelings on to them or the situation without talking. I know it seems so simple, but just talk, ask questions, learn about the person. Don't just automatically assume they're a liability.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Anne, in your judgment, what does that mean to have elite innovation as a manager?
Well, with managers, for them to be an elite leader, they need to be humble. We need to chuck egos and get egos out of the way and realize that we don't know everything. We need to realize that it's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And shoot, I just made one a few minutes ago. So, with leadership and to be an elite leader, humility is key, and openness and willingness to talk to people and learn about them and see where you can help them. It's need to be understanding of people's differences and understanding of people's needs. And I really think that, and then building trust. Above all else, it boils down to trust. That if you, as a leader, don't trust your employees to do their job, or you don't trust them to be honest with you, you don't trust them to make mistakes, then you're not going to be an elite leader. You're just going to be somebody who manages time and tasks.
Yeah, it's important to have that sort of a 360-degree view of the entire organization and its people, isn't it?
Yes, you need to
Ab-
look at the situation holistically from all views.
Absolutely. And, I'm curious to get your perspective on what's a sort of responsibility or pride do you think managers should take in producing a winning or an inclusive culture? What sort of a pride do you think managers should take in that regard?
So, with the creating an inclusive environment, for anybody that's leading people, they're the box should stop with them. They're the ones that create their culture. They are the ones that should be mirroring what they expect people to see. They're the ones that should be not better than anybody else, but the box stops with them. So they need to lead by example, demonstrate the behaviors that they want to see, and create that inclusive environment. People want belonging. They want that meaning at work, and it starts with the leadership. If leadership does not allow the bad behaviors in the organization, if they hold people accountable, if leaders create that culture of inclusivity, then the rest will follow and it will be throughout the organization. So every single leader should buy in and have a willingness to lead that culture.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know that you lead organizations with a people first mentality, as we've been discussing. But what I asked you to define what a people first mentality is, because I know you do workshops and leadership development on the topic. So tell me, what does a people first philosophy mean to you?
I've started my career leading with the people first philosophy with a focus on the person and for individually first. What strengths and abilities do they bring to the job, and how can we play to those strengths? It's recognizing that people are people. We are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And how do I, as a leader, respond to that mistake? Am I going to yell at you and call you a fool for making a mistake? Or am I going to say, it's okay? What did you learn from this? How can we prevent it in the future? And creating a safe environment for people to make those mistakes. Recognizing that we are people first, and some have childcare needs. They need to take care of their children before or after work, and they need to have that flexible schedule. Some people are more productive late in the afternoon. So why not play to that and let them come in a little bit later if they're going to stay a little if they want to stay a little bit later when they're most productive. And it's recognizing individual needs and strengths and realizing that the work will still get done and people will be more productive by leading people first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to be the ambassador for a project called the Discoverability Network here in the province of Ontario for the region of Windsor and Essex County. And what the Discoverability Network was it was the province of Ontario's first online job matching portal for folks with disabilities and employers to get connected. So you would go on the website, you create a profile, and if you're job seeking with a disability, you were matched with employers who wanted to hire inclusively And obviously, if you were an employer, it worked the opposite way. But one of the rallying cries or sort of taglines we used at the Ontario Chamber was seize the opportunity to advance your business and you get more done when you collaborate. So I'm fascinated to ask you, what do you think those two sentiments mean to you, and how do you think they apply to creating a diverse workforce?
First off, I think that's a really cool initiative that you were part of, and I like the word discoverability. And it sounds like a great organization that did some good work. And with the seize the opportunity to get more done with your organization, it's so true. It's and I really like the initiative to so that people can find each other in an easy to find way. And if you seize the opportunity, you seize the differences in people, you will get more done by having that more inclusive mindset. It's, hey, we can do this. There's a solution to every problem, and we're going to find it together. One of the worst phrases in the entire language is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I think that that phrase is the death knell for a lot of organizations because they're not including people of different abilities and different backgrounds and different experiences, that they are doing the same thing that they've done over and over and over. And so the discoverability initiative is turning that on its head and realizing there are some amazing people out there. Everyone has something to offer the organization. And by welcoming them on board, we are able to get more done.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've got a couple questions left for you. And the first is, I'm curious if you had any final thoughts on the importance of inclusion at work and really adopting that as a sustainable culture. What if I give you an audience of managers to emphasize the importance of inclusion at work? What do you think you would tell them and why?
The important of inclusion at work. So it's I'm sitting in front of a bunch of managers and saying, rather than beating them over the heads and saying, you need to hire inclusively, it's shifting their mindset. It's educating them to realize how much greater the workforce can be when we open it up, when we do include everybody. And it's really just that shift in mindset. And so, how do we get managers to realize how much greater the organization can be? When we open up our minds to different abilities, ideas, what are we also bringing into the organization? Rather than having the same ideas over and over and over, it's not only is it create higher morale for the employees, there's more buy-in from the leadership. Your customers are happier because you do have a more diverse workforce, but also you're probably not running short staffed. If you're fully staffed, customers want to see that too. And so it's really getting everybody on board, opening their minds to a more inclusive workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And my final question for you this afternoon has to do with your own legacy and how you want your legacy to be defined from a personal and professional standpoint.
What a great question, Kevin. Thank you. It's my own personal legacy is I want to leave the world better than I found it. I'm involved in an organization that raises money to fund scholarships for women. And so I want to be known as somebody who is an advocate for others and their success. I also want to be known as somebody who is caring, and I've taken the time to mentor others and help them. I've had a lot of mentors in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am without them. So I want to share that with others. And then professionally, I want to be known as the person who can reduce turnover and increase retention. I'm on a mission to improve the workforce and the work environment with a focus on the employee experience and employee retention and spreading that message to small and medium sized businesses. And for years, and I don't know where this came from, but a lot of what I hear is management versus employees, us versus them, or work is awful, it's drudgery. And work shouldn't be drudgery. We should have fun. We should find meaning and purpose in the work that we do. And that's what I want my professional legacy to be, is that I helped shift that to a better workplace for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you brought it up, and with this, and I'm curious to ask you about the importance of empowering women at work. And what do you think needs to be done to put more women in positions of leadership and really give them the sense of empowerment?
Wow, I could talk about that all day long. And I came up realizing, understanding that I am strong, I am capable, and I can do a great job in whatever, in most things. And one day at work, I was going to lift something, and somebody else just came over and said, "You're a woman, you can't lift that." And that threw me, knocked me down a few pegs. And I said, I can lift this, and I'm going to. And so realizing then that I need to stand up for myself and I need to be an advocate for myself. And then I can help empower others. And that empowerment word for me is just powerful because it is realizing I can do what I need to do to be a success. But I know that there are those people out there that did knock me down a peg, that told me I couldn't do what I knew I could. And how do I navigate that and take back my power? How do I stand up for myself and be an advocate? And so, as I mentioned before, I had a lot of mentors in my career that helped me navigate that to get to where I am. And it's realizing I do, so bolstering confidence, chucking imposter syndrome that can creep up, and realizing that we are capable and we do have the power to do what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
So on my website, donovanhrsolutions.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Anne Donovan SPHR.
Well, fabulous. And I could talk to you about inclusion at work for many more hours, but I'll end our initial conversation there. And I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication to the advancement of equality in the workplace and helping organizations retain great people, my friend. Your work in the space and time on my behalf this afternoon is most appreciated, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me.
Well, Kevin, thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for having me as a guest on your show. I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate the time that you gave to this.